First, let's talk about briefly. I will touch on why you should not mix tanks, which is sort of tangential to what Daze was wanting me to talk about. But so let's take the Myrmidon here. Let's use him as an example. The Myrmidon is a very it's a very complicated ship, but it has a lot of potential, partially because it's got 5 mid slots and 6 low slots. So it's got this really nice balance between mids and lows, which means it can shield tank or. Oh wow, is this. Okay, sorry, I thought that was ASP fit for a moment. I was about to kill myself. Like, gotta find a roof tall enough to jump off of here. But, so a Merm can fit a shield tank and it can fit an armor tank. And so a lot of people's assumption is like, oh, well then fit both, you know? If you can fit it, then, you know, it's better to have a shield tank and an armor tank than just one or whatever. But that that logic doesn't hold up outside of there's probably one in every 100,000 times where somebody who really knows what they're doing takes a battleship and like dual tanks it for like uber bait. But that's it, and I wouldn't even really say you should do that. But somebody has probably done it successfully. But I don't want that to be seen as like making it a valid thing to do, because it's really not. So let's take this. This one is going to be a little bit difficult because I need these cap injectors to fuel my reps. But if it was buffer fit, the story would be the same. But you should not mix shield tank and armor tank. Don't do it. And the reason is, I have an armor tank right here. Obviously, it's an active armor tank. No buffer. But part of the beauty of this and part of the appeal of all armor tanks is that your mid slots are completely free to do whatever you want. You can put in scram and a web. You can put in another web. You can put in a long point along with your scram. You could be dual prop, dual web, or sorry, dual point, dual web. You can be dual prop like my Stabber was, because it's armor tanked. I've got those mid slots free. You can do anything. You can do tracking disruptors, you know, all kinds of stuff. And in that case, that's whenever you hear me talking about a utility high slot is a high slot where there's a slot, but it doesn't really have a hard point for the type of weapons I'm trying to use. I call that a utility high slot because it's made for something like a newt or a vamp or a smart bomb, like a PCV, you know, something that has some function. That's the same with the mids. When you're an armor tanker, all of your mids are kind of like these utility mid slots. And the scram you should have on every ship, or long point depending. But you know, even the web and pretty much every armor ship can fit scram web, and that's not true of shield tankers. Plus, I mean, this is active tank, so I have to have 2 cap injectors. But if this was just a buffer tank, I mean, I'd probably put like tracking disruptors on here to combat tier 3 BC snipers to make it harder for them to sit at range and do damage. And when you dual tank, yeah, it might look like you're having a little bit more EHP, but guess what? Your rigs are not going to do both. You're going to be rigged for one tank, and your other tank is going to be really dust in the wind. It's not worth it. It does not add enough to your EHP to justify sacrificing like all of this good utility that can do so much more. So whenever I see somebody who has like a shield extender or a shield booster and they've got an armor plate, I guarantee you that's a new player pretty much every time, or somebody who just doesn't understand fitting, or somebody who's never done anything at all besides run really easy missions. When you try and dual tank something, you really are compromising one of the tanks, because you're expecting like, oh, it'll have the EHP of a shield tanker and the EHP of an armor. No, that's not how it works. So please don't do it. It's bad. Take advantage of the one tank that you have, make that tank as good as you possibly can, and then that's enough. If I was shield tanked, the lows become the utility, because I can fill them with gyros and drone damage amps and or mag stabs, or you know, whatever, damage modules, tracking enhancers, nanofiber internal structures to make it faster, all that sort of stuff. So choose a tank, do it right, stick with it, use the remaining slots, be they mids or lows, use them properly to enhance the ship. Don't worry about the tank. The tank is taken care of. Do what you can to make the ship better in other aspects. Hopefully that makes sense to people, because that really should have been the fourth thou shalt not, is thou shalt not mix tanks. It's bad. As logical as it seems, it's a waste. So please don't do it. It really frustrates me to see people who really should know better, who continue to dual tank. And again, I realize somebody somewhere has done it successfully, and may even habitually do it successfully, but it's not a smart thing to do for everybody who's genuinely interested in normal PvP. So, then we get to the other point. I'm glad that you brought that up. I do not